people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Lonnie Daniels versus Andrade Green on what was the undercard of Baumgartner versus Bo-Mi Shin. Let's talk about the fight. This was impressive. This was not what I expected, which is really when boxing is at its best. When things don't go according to the script. Andrade Green, on her own home turf, was supposed to be able to win this fight, having beaten the likes of a Savannah Marshall. Surely she can handle a Lonnie Daniels. Except that she couldn't, and here's why. This was a very different Lonnie Daniels to the one we saw fight Claressa Shields. With Claressa, she was getting on the good foot, moving lateral, stepping out of the pocket, whereas with Andrade, she was stepping into it. And the irony of Lonnie Daniels being the quote-unquote bigger fighter, moving down in weight from light heavy to super middle, she looked the smaller fighter of the two, noticeably smaller than Andrade Green, which she worked to her advantage. Shedding the excess and losing that extra weight seems to have had not only a stamina benefit for Lonnie, but a speed benefit, as she was visibly outworking Andrade Green, mid-range to inside. So what she established early in the fight is that she's faster in the exchange, faster in the pocket, and she is beating the reigning champion to the punch. Andrade is flustered. We've seen that before. We saw it in the Franchon Cruz fight that she also lost for the same reason. If the opponent is durable and persistent enough to keep coming forward and keep applying pressure, Andrade is like a deer in the headlights. She becomes overwhelmed. She's a talented counter-puncher when she can get off the counters, but if there's too much coming at her, too fast, too often, she shells up, gets gun-shy. That's why Franchon Cruz beat her, and that's why Lonnie Daniels just beat her this past weekend, effectively becoming a two-weight world champion and doing it in style, not via email like some other champions. No, she beat the champion to be the champion in the champion's neck of the woods and didn't need the judges to tell her who won. She forced a stoppage, I could tell. Now, going back to her corner, Andrade Green several times was in really bad shape, sucking wind. Oh yeah, she was tired. Counters weren't coming out as hot and heavy as they were at the start of the fight. Little by little, she's taking more and more punishment. And I could see, if Lonnie hits the gas just a little bit more, she can force a stoppage, which she did, effectively becoming Ring Magazine, IBF, and WBO super middleweight champion, having already been IBF champion in the light heavyweight division. Now, she's a two-weight world champion. I don't know what this means for the future of Andrade Green. I don't know if MVP will decide to jettison her and replace her with Lonnie Daniels. That's possible. To the victor go the spoils, am I right? Noticeable concern for Andrade Green. As the fight was waved off, Lonnie Daniels had to hold off on her celebration as Andrade was in really bad shape, but thankfully, she's expected to make a full recovery, even though they had to carry her out on a stretcher. A statement win for Lonnie Daniels, who I believe was coming right off a decision loss to Claressa Shields. A victory that's actually aging well for the loudmouth at the higher weights. Matchmaking at MVP that seems to have backfired. They must have thought that if Claressa can handle Lonnie, then so can Andrade. They were wrong. She is now one of only two reigning world champions in the super middleweight division. She has 2 of the 4 alphabet titles, and Franchon Cruz has the other 2. Still coming off that loss in the rematch to Claressa, it hasn't affected her status as a champion at super middle, because that fight wasn't at her weight. This one could be an undisputed title fight between Franchon Cruz and Lonnie Daniels. In that way, it's actually good that Lonnie won the fight, because it changes the narrative and changes the landscape. If Andrade would have won, it would have been what everybody expected, and the conversation wouldn't have changed much. It would have stayed on Jadeja and Clarissa, and when are they going to fight? All very tedious.
Very predictable.
That's why upsets like this one are actually good for the sport of boxing, because it does remind people on the night almost anything can happen, and this still is a sport.
Lonnie Daniels now has the option of unifying titles with Franchon Cruz or voluntarily defending hers against the former champion, Savannah Marshall, who also fights for MVP.
Either way, she made a statement this weekend and in many ways reintroduced herself to the boxing world. Congratulations to her.
Dana White.
Dana White had this to say about his online critics over the amount of money spent for Conor Benn. He said, "You guys should be fucking running Bellator, PFL, and one championship. Go help these guys out. You guys are brilliant. Absolute geniuses. You know everything about the fight game. So why aren't you running one of those failing organizations?"
Why are you bringing up promotions in mixed martial arts when you're being criticized over boxing? And what's going on in boxing, what you're doing in boxing, that's an apples to oranges argument.
Now, Dana White is a poker-faced kind of guy. He never wants to show you his cards, but by making the argument about failing promotions in MMA,
You kinda already did.
it's very easy to point out their shortcomings because UFC is the premier promotion in all of mixed martial arts. But where is Zuffa? Where is Zuffa in terms of the world of boxing? Because that's what you're being criticized over. And I think that Dana White, just a few months into the sport of boxing, is already feeling the pinch.
He's not used to competition.
He's used to having things all his way in the world of mixed martial arts because he's one of the pioneers that really helped to get it off the ground. He didn't have to corner that market because he in many ways created it, along with the Furtada brothers.
I mean, where was MMA before those guys came along?
And I still give him credit for that, as it takes ingenue and vision to create a market for a sport where there wasn't one.
I give him a lot of credit for that. But that's not the situation with boxing, nor has it ever been, which is why, for so many years, it was hard for Dana to make any sort of inroads into the world of boxing. He only did so recently with the help of Turkey LL Sheik and Nick Khan of the WWE.
Without them, he would still be on the outside looking in.
Showing weakness.
He called Eddie Hearn a pussy
A bitch.
over the Conor Benn situation. Remember that? Now Eddie Hearn is saying, if I'm such a pussy and I'm such a bitch, why don't me and you lace the gloves up and see which one of us is the pussy?
Listen, he called me out for a fight. I'm telling you, I'm in. Right? I'm training every day. I'm ripped to shreds. Fucking blistering hand speed. Unbelievable. And I'm ready.
He said that, come on, you ain't fighting. Look,
Why?
what I would
What do you
say
mean
is...
I'm not fighting?
No,
I'll tell you
look,
what
I don't
do.
agree with
This
that.
is
No, hold
very
on,
straightforward,
hold
yeah?
on.
You put 50-50 in a pot, right? I know they're not used to this model, but we'll split the revenue with the fighters, me and him. 50-50. A broadcaster wants to come in, they can take 10 or 15% of the pay-per-view. Eat what you kill. We'll make 10 million, 40, 60, 70. We'll make 30 million each for the fight. I'm in.
You might be in, but it's not going to happen. I think that's the real...
Well, no, because
I'm just
it
saying
takes
so.
two to tango.
No, I'm just saying so.
And at the end of the day...
So I want to fight Mike Tyson. Doesn't mean it's going to fucking happen.
But Mike Tyson never called you out. In fact, Mike Tyson don't even fucking know who you are, mate. So I'm telling
He's
you...
only been on IFL 6 times, but anyway...
I'm telling you, he called me out for a fight. He said, I wouldn't fight me. And I'm telling you, I will fight you. And I'm telling you, I'm in.
Oh, I was wondering. Oh, calm down.
No, but,
What's the matter with
you know, put some respect on my name.
All right, I'm just saying so. I was half joking. Now you're taking it seriously.
The thing is with Dana, he's not aware. He's not aware.
Do you reckon
He
Dana
doesn't know anything about Eddie Hearn, the Iceman, from Billericay, Lake Meadows, 4-0, 4 by way of.
Do you reckon Dana White can survive a cold night on Brentwood High Street? do you reckon he knows about Brentwood High Street?
He knows in LA. Yeah.
To be fair, you probably thought Dana was talking about Essex, mate.
Yeah. No, listen. All jokes aside, I don't like the way he keeps calling me a pussy because I'd fight him. So if we can find out who's the bigger pussy, maybe we're both pussies. But he said we're both bums. It would go on the start. No, it wouldn't. Main event, fucking up in lights. I'll bring the travelling army from Essex over to Vegas. Right? Imagine.
The Travellers Army or the Travelling Army? Oh, sorry.
The travelling army from Essex, 20,000.
Jesus
How big it would be?
I know it'd be big.
Because I'd document it and I'd train my bollocks off as well. I'm ready. I'm fucking ready.
I think that's where they're different, Eddie Hearn and Dana White. Dana White is said to be a promoter in title, but perhaps not in practice. I've been saying he doesn't know more about selling a boxing match than Eddie does. And that is what Eddie's doing now, selling a boxing match between him and Dana White on the premise Dana called him out.
Eddie Hearn, always the salesman, always a promoter, sees it as a money-making opportunity, which it is.
Listen, pussy. If I'm a pussy, come and show me I'm a pussy. So you called me out for a fight, I accept. And now he's going, well, I'm 57 years old. I said, no, you told me I wouldn't do it and I'm a pussy. So what are you? An old pussy?
Dana White has since responded to Eddie Hearn's X-rated rant. Tensions reached a new level recently when White jokingly called out Eddie Hearn to settle their rivalry in a boxing ring while the UFC CEO's comments were made in jest. Hearn has since shown he's more than willing to take the idea seriously. This weekend, Hearn's fighter Ben Whitaker extended his unbeaten record in Liverpool. Speaking to the media post-fight, the Matchroom chairman was asked about his potential showdown with his bitter rival, Dana White. He said, the only thing that can stop the fight from happening is Dana White. So really, the truth of the matter is, he's backing out of the fight that he called on. So who's the pussy now? Where are your balls gone, you pussy? Something like that.
You know, if they did this fight, I actually think it would be big. It'd be huge. I'd buy it.
Eddie Hearn continued, I mean, you can't keep calling me a pussy when you call me out for a fight and I accept the fight and then you go, oh no, we're bums. It would go on earlier in the night. What the fuck is that? We would main event and sell out a massive stadium, and if it's on DAZN, do you not agree with me? Do you not think we'd sell out the O2?
I actually think they would. The O2 Arena, the Garden.
Do you not think we'd do over 1 million buys globally? Don't forget, he is a big name, right? I mean, some may say bigger than me. Well, I don't know, but certainly in America. So we've got the American audience, we've got the UK audience. Can you imagine how the fuck I would sell this show? Oh my god. Anyway, it's all probably a fantasy, but I do think about it on every run, in bed every night. I've picked my ring walk, I've actually designed my robe, but like I said, it'll probably just be a fantasy because unfortunately, Dana White backed out of the fight. How did Dana respond?
A few hours after Hearn made his latest quip at White, the American shared his own perspective on the situation. He told assembled media in Winnipeg, Eddie said that me and him are the biggest fight in boxing. Therein lies the problem with boxing, and the fact that a fight promoter who's actually put on big fights and had a stable of good fighters would say something like that fucking stupid is now starting to not be as shocking as it was in the beginning. You're a fucking bum. I'm old, and we don't even deserve to be on a card with a bunch of real fighters.
Hey, you's the one called him a pussy, Dana.
That was a very weak response, and as stated, I think Dana White has been looking very weak right now, under criticism over the Conor Benn deal and the pressure that Eddie Hearn is now putting on him. You's the one called him a pussy, you's the one called him out for a fight, now you's the one backing down.
He's used to having things all his way. He's not used to this much pushback, this much resistance, and he's feeling it.
You thought that Conor Benn was this amazing acquisition, and it wasn't, and you thought that Eddie Hearn would take your idle threats lying down, which he didn't.
I always tell you guys, it's more to boxing than what you see on paper, and Dana White is finding that out the hard way.
Yo, Canelo, you fucking bum. Oh my God, Canelo, you a fucking bum, bro.
Wait. Two-time undisputed champion Canelo Alvarez is a bum. What does that make Demetrius Andrade for not accomplishing even half of what Canelo has?
Yo, you a fucking bum, bro. Holy shit. That shit was horrible, bro. Oh my God. Just that ugly ass left hook he was throwing to the body. Oh my God. Like, what the hell?
After all this time, still coming off the loss to David Benavidez, how could Canelo Alvarez still be the focus for this guy?
How long has he been at this?
He's the only guy more obsessed with Canelo Alvarez than David Benavidez. He's the originator.
The original Stan.
Went in there and shit. God, well, I would knock Canelo out.
Sure.
I will stop him.
Damn, that Canelo Alvarez wet the bed like that? He went to bed.
That fight was boring. That was some boring ass shit.
As opposed to all of the exciting fights Demetrius has given us.
Yo, so let's make
Give
it
up to Terrence Crawford, but that was some boring ass shit. Canelo fucking bum.
I believe it's about a little bit more than just a fight purse now for Demetrius Andrade. I think that in his own mind, he holds Canelo Alvarez personally accountable for all the things that didn't go right in his own career, because his own career seems to have been solely about Canelo and nobody else.
No other fight with no other fighter was more important to Demetrius than the Canelo Alvarez fight, which I often identified as a mistake because you can't make your whole life's focus about one guy that you may or may not fight.
And what he has to say about him is that he's a bum. Whatever he is, he has accomplished far more than you have, and when the sun sets on his career, he'll be remembered. But will you?
Said the Crawford fight was boring.
Terrence Crawford, yet another fighter who has already accomplished far more than Demetrius Andrade ever has, ever will.
Yet another fighter who also happened to make a lot more money throughout his career than Demetrius did in his. Is that a coincidence? That these guys that are more accomplished than Demetrius by and large also made more money than he did. If every decision that you've made led you to where you are now, that must mean you've been making all the wrong decisions this time.
Of course he has, and you know that this guy's actually older than Canelo Alvarez with far less to show for it. There are too many other fights with too many other fighters in the sport of boxing for Canelo Alvarez to be the reason your career sucks.
Aaron Pryor had the same hard-on for a Sugar Ray Leonard fight that Demetrius Andrade has had for a Canelo fight, but at least he has the wins over Arguello. What does Demetrius have?
A developing speech impediment, it sounds like. So it's supposed to be this tragedy that, in spite of a decorated amateur background, Demetrius Andrade in the paid ranks career never really took off.
Canelo Alvarez by himself should not be the difference between Demetrius having a successful boxing career and not having a successful boxing career, because there were far too many other fights that he could have had, should have had, that Canelo's impact on it is of his own doing.
Many years has it been now since he got manhandled by David Benavidez. Why, instead of getting his career back on track, he's back to doing interviews about Canelo Alvarez and name-dropping Canelo Alvarez? That isn't going to help the situation.
Thinks he's too good for every goddamn thing. That's why he turned his nose up at so many fights that could have happened in his prime that now he has nothing to show for it. No resume, no signature fights, no legacy,
no future prospects, and nothing on the horizon. What was stopping him from going on Pro Box and having one or two stay busy fights to rebuild his career? What's stopping him now from going over to Pro Box or going over to Zuffa?
That Hasidity attitude, that's what's stopping him.
Because he thinks he's too good for everything. In reality, he's not good for anything. Can't sell no tickets. Nobody's really checking for him in spite of a small rabble of individuals who like to bring him up to bash Canelo Alvarez. It's not that Demetrius Andrade has fans.
He never did.
It's that Canelo Alvarez has haters. But for all the online hate he receives, he's still one of the highest paid boxers in the sport. When he comes back in September, everybody, them included, will be watching. And Demetrius.
You can't help yourselves.
Because the only people that watch you harder than your supporters are your haters.